have, they will bring up other issues. But just briefly, when we wanted to have the school here, of course, as far as the legal aspects which you went through, we didn't have to go through that because we already have the Islamic Center, and the school was to be part of the Islamic Center. So we didn't do anything in terms of establishing the identity of the school legally. The school is part of the Islamic Society of Greater Lansing.
So one non-profit organization.
Yes, non-profit organization is already there. And this is just one activity of
Part of it, yes.
So we didn't do anything illegal for the school from that respect, because we just established the school as part of the same society. That's as far as the legal aspects. Now, when we wanted to have the school, there was a brochure, I think it was published by ISNA, about how to establish an Islamic school. And it described a school planning committee that will have several subcommittees, one looking at finances, one looking at facilities, one looking at this and that. There was probably 5 subcommittees. So the first year, which I believe was 94.
That's what I'm going to ask you, 94.
Yeah,
okay.
it was 94. We formed this committee, and there were probably 25 people involved in this activity between the main committee and all the subcommittees. Mm-hmm. And a year passed, and nothing really happened. Too many people involved in the planning was not really a good idea.
Also.
Yeah, because too many opinions and we couldn't really make good progress. So the next year, we tried again. This time we didn't have all these subcommittees. We only had a committee of 5 or 6 people who worked on this. And we then decided to start the school. And the school started actually in 96. It opened the doors in 96, officially in 96. 2 years after that, we started the planning. And one of the main challenges that we have, and we continue to have in this community, is the demographics of the community. In that, unlike some other communities that established schools, we didn't have the rich people in this community. We knew that we have enough kids to establish a school, but we couldn't have, or we didn't have enough people who actually can afford to pay the tuition. And it is because of that from day one we started with very low tuition. We actually, the very first year of the school, the tuition was $1,200. Okay? And then it started to go up. And then at certain point, we switched it for something called income-based tuition. Brother Tahsin can probably give you we have a table that talks about the family income and then determines the tuition based on the family income and the number of students in the school. And we probably, as far as we know, the only school that follows this income-based tuition. And that's something that's forced by our situation here. India, yeah. And that is, like when you said that you have a lot of people from Somalia and Bosnia, and all those are refugees. And the refugees are usually on the lower income. And we are also, actually, the Somali community was the basic population early on, when the school was still young, and not too many people among the affluent people don't want to start to put their kids in a school that's still, they don't know how good the school is.
Yes, yes.
It is really the Somali community that populated our school, because those are ones who are really willing to put their kids. They want the Islamic school, and and they will go for that. Until the school started to stand, and then the other people, now the doctors and those, started to see, yes, we would like to put our kids in the school. But it was really the Somali community that carried us. The problem is that they are low income. All of them came as refugees. So we really had to start with very low tuition. And these days we are working with this. So one of the things you really have to look into the community, what is the nature of the people in the community and their ability to pay tuition and their interest in bringing their kids to Islamic school. There are some communities, you have a whole bunch of doctors who really would like to put their kids in the Islamic school, so the Islamic school can put the tuition at $6,000-7,000, and they don't have a problem with that. While in other communities, it's not like that. So one of the really important things is to know your community in terms of their ability to pay and how you can try to match disability. As of today, our tuition ranges from close to 2,000 all the way to about close to 4,500, or maybe a little bit over 4,500 if you are in a younger class, close maybe to 5,000. But the average tuition is more like 3,000. Okay, between and on the other hand, we really are trying hard to control our expenses. So the kid costs us only $4,000, and there are tricks how you can actually get to $4,000 only. And one of these tricks is to really make good use of the teachers. Because when we hire a teacher, certified teacher, one of the things, of course, we did early on is that we insisted that always the teachers who will teach the academic subjects, non-Islamic subjects, which are the math, the language arts, the science, and the social studies, will be certified teachers, even if they are not Muslims. In other words, you have to be certified first. And of course, if you can get them certified and Muslims, that's great. Yeah, but we will have to have certified teachers. So one thing we did to make good use of those certified teachers is that when the certified teacher, for example, teaches first grade, well, she's not going to be with them all day, because our day has 8 periods. 3 of them are dedicated to Islamic subjects. One is Quran, one is Arabic, and one is Islamic studies. And 5 are dedicated to the non-Islamic subjects. So the teacher is not going to be with the class all day. She will be only 5 periods. So then we will use her 2 periods in one of the upper classes, like teaching language arts or teaching math, depending on her certificate and what the specialization. So actually we are using every teacher's the 7 periods to use 5 in one class and 2 in the upper classes. As a result of that, it ends up that basically the upper classes are using the teachers of the lower classes. And that through this formula and through also being very careful in expenses and stuff like that, we manage to have the expenses about 4,000. Even with that, tuition pays only about 60%. Only 60% of the thing. And now, where we get the rest is all kind of trying here and there. We do the following things. First, we have some people who pledge monthly money to support the school. That's something we started early on, encouraging people to sign for automatic deduction for the school. We get some money from there. We have scholarships. Some people put a scholarship, and the scholarship is to support one of those who are paying the minimum tuition, who has good academics. However, the scholarship amount is double that. The rest supports the general school. Yes. So we get money from scholarships. We get money by trying to raise fund. We have a couple of food things that we raise fund from. One of them, when we sell food after Friday prayer, we split the revenue between the center and the school. Like we make about $10,000 out of that. Then we have another thing, and that is we have a lunch program and breakfast program. And those programs are funded by the state for the low income. And because we have a good number of low income who qualify for free lunch and free breakfast, we prepare that food locally, internally. And because we prepare it internally, we are not hiring a caterer to cater. We actually make money out of that.
Lower on that.
Yeah, so we make money out of that. We might be making somewhere about 30,000 or more out of that part. So we make money from these food projects. Yes, yes. And then we mentioned the pledges, the scholarships. And then we have our annual fundraising. The Islamic Center has the annual fundraising dinner, which now, this late years have been doing it in Ramadan. And that fundraising dinner is supposed to cover all activities of the Islamic Center, but good chunk of it typically goes to the school. Like close to half of it would actually go to the school. The school would, but it is determined by the Board of Trustees based on a request from the school. We prepare our budget. So the collection of all those things cover about 40% of the expenses. The tuition covers only about 60%. So that means that, of course, you always will be in a struggle. Because if you could have tuition cover 90% of your tuition, and only rely on 10% coming from different things like that,
we-
your life will be much easier.
A lot easier,
Yeah.
yes.
But when tuition can only cover 60%,
Yes.
and then you have to come up with about 40%. 40%, by the way, the budget now is close to $700,000, 600 plus. I don't know how much is it, but it's over 600 for sure. So 40% of 600, that's close to $250,000 that you actually have to raise
Every year.
by all these kind of different activities that you have to do. So did I calculate it right? No, 40, 600, yeah, about 240.
Close to that, yeah.
240, yeah, close
And
to.
it's going to be an increasing number.
Yeah, and of course, as the budget grows from year to year, that number is growing.
Expensive.
So there is a lot of pressure in terms of actually securing that amount. Alhamdulillah, we have been always securing it. But if your community, the demographics of the people and their income is such that you can actually rely more on tuition and less on raising
Fundraising.
money, you, of course, would be in a better position. That would be a goal. Okay. In our case, of course, when we started planning, knowing that the community is not rich community, or at least we don't have enough rich people to put kids in the school and support it. The goal, we said the goal is tuition will cover 50%. But then we had an idea also that we are going to have an endowment. We are going to establish an endowment, and the revenue of that endowment will cover, say, 30%, and only will get 20% from those fundraising things. That endowment was never established because from day one we got into building projects, one after the other, expand this phase and that phase and that phase, and we never really established that endowment. The Board of Trustees now is trying to work a little bit harder and actually establishing this endowment. But our envision at the time, and of course there was a reason, historical reason, why we thought that endowment was possible. When we started building the school, we thought that we are going to build the school from this overseas money. This community, because it is a campus community,
Yes.
we get all these students from the Gulf area
Yes.
who come here and spend a few years, and they continue their ties
And support, yeah.
with us. And actually, this original Islamic Center was built by money from the Gulf. And when we started about the school and building, the original money actually came from the Gulf. We got a grant from the Islamic Development Bank, $250,000, and we had our sheikh went a couple of trips
Yes.
to the Gulf area, and every trip will come back at least with another $250,000 donations, stuff like that. So the impression was that we will be able to build the school building from overseas money, and we just have to worry about establishing our endowment.
Yeah.
Of course, 9/11 came, okay, and changed the whole
Yes.
atmosphere, and all money from overseas dried up. We were not able from that point on to get any money from overseas. So we had to turn to the community to build the project, to complete the project, and to pay the debts that we got into in order to build the project. Alhamdulillah, we paid it all off now. But at one point, we had over $1 million debt as part of the building project. So that change in the scenario meant that instead of going to the community here, the local community, to try to establish the endowment, we had to go to the local community to build. So the endowment has not been established. And that's actually is probably the reason why we are now today in this. Even though we were able to get the tuition from 50% to 60%, better than the planning, but still 40%. Yeah, that of course is not a very healthy situation. You really would like, if you can, to have some sort of secure funding for at least 80%. Whether it is endowment or tuition, something that is not based on begging around. But here we have to keep actually begging, announcing fundraising, going to people and doing this, and in order to come up with 40% of the thing. Of course, finances, as you know, is the most challenging thing in a school. So I guess this is one of our challenges. Another challenge we faced, I hope you don't face it in your community, that some members of our community felt that the school is a luxury that the community cannot afford. And they were against the school, and they were really very strongly against the school. Okay, in other words, very, very vocal opposition to having a school, and alhamdulillah, the school still survived and flourished and so on, and that opposition kind of dwindled, but there are still some people who still, until this day, over 16, 17 years later, still believe that that was a mistake that we should not have got into.
What's their...
They think that the school exhausts all the resources of the community, and instead of these resources supporting the activity of the Islamic Center, all the resources are going into the school, and that comes at the expense of the Islamic Center. Of course, that's not true, because what happens is people donate when there is need.
That's right.
In other words, you are not going to, if the Islamic Center is running, you are not going to go and put $5,000. Well, it's already running. But when there is need, you need, the community needs to build something, the community needs to support a project like school, people donate more than what they... So, like, when we had an Islamic Center and we didn't have a school, we never had something called annual fundraising dinner. We never had to go to the community with an annual fundraising dinner to raise a lot of money. Now we do this annual fundraising dinner, and our target is $250,000, typically. So, when there is need, the community is going to come forward. If there is no need, the community is not going to come forward with something. There are other, all kinds of Islamic ways you can spend your money, your zakah. It's not just the local mosque. So, in other words, the idea that the school takes all the resources of the community and nothing is left, I don't think it's the right theory, because the school establishes a need, and when there is a need, people are going to donate more than their usual. But still, one branch of the community felt that it is a mistake for a community which is not affluent community to actually build a school when you have to subsidize the expenses of the school. So that's one factor that to keep in mind. That there might be some people in the community who will not be convinced of this. So this is finances is a challenge. This one is a challenge. Of course, one of the biggest challenges is maintaining the quality of the school. You build the school, and you want always the quality of the school to be good. And then once you have a school, you have also, one of the things is that when you start to talk about a school, you have a core of people who really would like to have their kids in an Islamic school. And they are willing to accept many sacrifices. Like when the school started, actually started first in a house. We just bought a house behind us here. And the school was 2 classrooms in a house. Then when we moved to the house, we had those portable classrooms in the parking lot for 2 or 3 years and stuff like that. So facilities was really school facilities. And there are those core people who are willing. They are willing to their kids to go to a school that has no physical education, has no art. Yes. They are willing to make many sacrifices in order to put their kids. That core people, however, a core group is not the whole community.
Yes, right.
The school will have to appeal to a wider group. Yes. And in order to appeal to that wider group, you really have to have the kind of quality school that those people will feel that, because there are many people in the community who feel that they can still have their kids in a public school, and they can educate their kids through other means. And of course, in any community that didn't have a school, that's what many families were doing. And that's what I did with my older kids before the school was established. They were going to public school, and I was educating them through between Sunday school and between work at home. We educated, alhamdulillah, it was successful. So for a people like that to be convinced that it is better for them to take their kids from the free public school and put them in this private Islamic school that has tuition, you need a lot of convincing, and you need also to make sure that you are giving them something worth the money. In other words, if it ends up to be just like public school, so what's the point?
What's the point?
I can put them in public school for free. So you always want to maintain the quality. You always want parents to feel that they are really getting their money's worth in the school. Usually that's easier in the lower grades than in the upper grades.
Yes.
In the lower grades, once you put a kid, 5-year-old kid in a school, and the kid goes home and he recites Fatiha and he recites this, parents get very excited.
Yes.
Yeah, and the kids start to make a dua. This is the dua of going into this, dua, starting, and the parents didn't even know this dua. You get very excited.
Yes, yes.
But after the kids stays in the school for 5 years, okay, they got used to that now.
Yeah. Nothing
Okay, so we start to get into now middle school age or something like that. Now it's changing. Now they need to see something. Then you have some people who say, well, I have had my kids in the school enough. I now have a good foundation. Let me transfer him to the middle public school. And although, of course, again, people like me and like Haseen would say, well, actually, the kids needed the Islamic school in the middle school more than they needed the
And I'm
elementary.
in agreement with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's not how parents would look at it.
Yes.
So one of the things that we always struggling with this, that when you start to get into those upper classes, you still have to make sure that the Islamic identity and the parents feel how the Islamic environment is affecting their kids, so that they actually remain convinced that they should be in the school. So it is much easier to convince them that in the young ages. As I said, it is very, they see the impact right away. With the kids going home and reciting things and making prayers and having a schedule from the teacher saying, did I pray 5 times a day? And those things, easy in the younger grades, second, third, something like that. Once you start to get into upper grades, then it becomes more challenge for them to see the benefit of the school. Unless the parents really are thinking deeper
Into the future, yes.
and seeing what the kids is actually getting. That's one of the challenges. So maintaining the quality, of course, has to do with your curriculums and your teachers. Speaking of curriculum, by the way, the way we decided early on to follow as a curriculum is that as far as the non-Islamic subjects, we said that we are going to follow East Lansing School District, which is the district we are physically in. We are going just to always, we don't have the resources to establish a curriculum ourselves. So we are going just to always follow East Lansing. These days, the situation has changed. The state of Michigan actually has its own curriculum. They call it GLICS now, and which is now what all school districts are supposed. In other words, there are standards that come now from the state, which are more detailed than what school districts used to write down as curriculum, and they call it GLICS, and which I don't know what GLICS stands for, but general learning, something like that. But there are guidelines that now come from the state of Michigan in terms of what the curriculum should cover for each grade level. And actually, the state of Michigan published something for the teachers and something for the parents to know what their kids are covering. So these days, our school, although they still get the curriculum from East Lansing, but they are now very much following that Michigan curriculum that they are following. But one thing we decided from day one, that we are not going to try to establish a curriculum for that. We are going just to follow whatever is available in public schools. Of course, we choose our own textbooks, which again, similar to textbooks they choose in public school, except that, for example, we can always be careful in choosing the Islamic studies textbook to see what they are saying about Islam and stuff like that, when they cover subjects. And usually there are good books, and books are not
using Iqra books. Or
yeah, that comes now to the Islamic subjects. We started with the Iqra curriculum for Islamic studies, and that's basically still remains our guidelines for Islamic studies curriculum. And in the early years, we were using books from Iqra, but right now we are using actually a different series of books. I don't know what's the name. Yahya, the author. Do you remember the author? Yahya. There are books written by an American Muslim convert. And the books are really well illustrated. They're good, and with illustrations now and colors and stuff like that, they are really much better appealing. You can always get samples of them from our...
Is that Dar es Salaam publishes it or somewhere else?
We buy them from a company called Nur Art. Nur Art is a textbook seller. We basically buy all our Islamic and Arabic books from Nur Art. But of course, they are not the publisher. Nur Art is just a bookstore. So they get from all publishers and they sell. But we have an Islamic studies series and we have an Arabic series. The Arabic series actually is written by a person who actually lives in France. Studies and the Arabic. We basically found about them from Flint School, the Genesee Academy in Flint. Our main Islamic studies teachers has good connection with people in Flint. And through that connection, she knows what they are teaching there. So we really got to know those book series, both the Arabic and the Islamic studies, through the Flint people. But they are really good books, both the Arabic and with good illustrations. And so they're good, appealing books.
And do you have samples here?
Yeah. If you come...
Flint is what's important for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are good book series that we actually follow. At the same time, we are still also looking at, like, for example, one of the struggles with the Arabic language is, what is the goal of Arabic language? Is the goal that people should converse in Arabic, being able to speak Arabic? Or is the goal they should be able to read the Quran and understand? And sometimes, especially from Arabic families, families whose everyday language is Arabic, like myself, parents somehow expect that when their kids study Arabic in the school, they will be able to converse in Arabic like their parents, which of course is completely unrealistic.
Yes.
Because, and I always tell people this example, did you study French in high school? He said, yes. How many years? 4. Can you converse in French? Of course you cannot converse in French. So sometimes the expectation of Arabic language is more than actually a school can deliver. So one of the things actually the school probably is going to do as a result of there's always this dissatisfaction. We probably are going to hire some consultant. We heard about school in Chicago, hired a consultant who looked at their curriculum and advised them. And we probably are going to hire that consultant to also look at our curriculum, at least to assure those people who are skeptic.
Yes,
There are some members of the school committee who are skeptic about that issue. It's okay, let's go hire a consultant. But one of the challenges is always with the Arabic language, which is not with Islamic studies. Islamic studies are kind of clear.
Yes.
There are. You know what you expect from Islamic studies. And Quran for us is basically memorization and reading. When the kids start in the early grades, first and second, they spend only 4 days on Quran, because the 5th day we have the Jum'ah prayer. So Quran is taught only 4 days.
4 days.
And in those 4 days, in the first and second grades, they spend 2 days on memorization and 2 days on learning how to read, learning the letters and how to connect them, and how to read Quran, and how to make tashkil, fatha and dhamma, stuff like that. Then after that, it is memorization. Although they are supposed to start to get into upper grades, to start to teach them some of the simple rules of tajweed as they go on. But the kids should be able at that level is to open the Mus'haf. When they memorize, they actually can read from the Mus'haf. And I know that my son like that, and probably Ahmad is like that. They actually, when they memorize at that level, they are reading from the Mus'haf. In other words, he can read the surah from the Mus'haf and memorize from the Mus'haf directly. Early on, they had to rely on audio, which is still good because of the pronunciation. But early on, he could only memorize from the audio. Now he actually, when he wants to review the surah, he can open the Mus'haf and he memorize it from the Mus'haf. So Quran for us is mostly memorization. That's the Quran period. Islamic studies is all about hadith and seerah and fiqh and all these kind of things covered in Islamic studies. It is the Arabic language that is kind of challenging, because, as I said, the expectation of people is different, and also the background of people is different. Families who can speak Arabic can help with their kids in Arabic. Families who don't speak Arabic cannot help with their kids in Arabic. So teachers will have to manage this environment where you have kids who actually can get help at home and the kids who cannot get help at home. So one of the challenges is teach Arabic. That will be always a challenge, I believe. But I think we are still managing to do a reasonable job in Arabic.
Yeah, I think you are correct in the sense that if we look at the population, which is born and raised here, Muslim population, how many of them converse in their mother tongue?
Yeah.
Whether it's Arabic or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very few.
Very few. And actually,
You can't deny the reality.
our children don't converse in our language, whether it is Arabic or Urdu or Somali, whatever. They don't converse with that language. They might understand us,
But it's easier for them.
and we might force them to like I did force my kids to speak to me in Arabic so that they practice and get, but only with me. Even when they talk with each other,
Exactly.
they are not going to talk in Arabic.
No.
But I know now, I have two older kids who are now 33 and 32. When they were young, at dinner table, then we had a rule, we only speak in Arabic at dinner table. You have to tell us what happened in the school and stuff like that. So they actually, now one of them is teaching now Arabic and Islamic studies at the university and stuff like that. They can speak Arabic, but they will not speak with each other. They might speak with me, but you will not speak with each other. You will not speak with their children. They are going to speak.
So I think as a comfort level,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a comfort. Yes.
comfort level, how easy they're comfortable.
So that's, I guess, what I have. Now maybe I can answer questions.
Thank you. No, I've been wonderful. I do have a few questions. Like I said, we are at the very baby step. Okay, so there are a lot of questions. Just what I have thought and I have discussed with the other committee members that we want to start with the daycare, like you did, and produce our own nursery for grade 1 and up, and so on and so forth. And you mentioned in your discussion that that's how you got started, and you still have that.
Well, actually, when we started the very first year, we had kindergarten, first and second grades. And we continued like that for a few years. Then at 1 year, we split the kindergarten into kindergarten and pre-kindergarten.
Okay.
Because what happened is that people were coming into kindergarten, and because we wanted to fill the class, we started to accept kids who are younger, and we are private school, so we can accept kids younger than the expected age. So we started to do that. Then the number started to grow, that actually the class now has 2 age groups. We have enough. So we started to have what we call the pre-K. So while the kindergarten is supposed to accept 5 years old, the pre-K accepts 4 years old. Then this year, the same thing happened again with the kindergarten, that again we started to accept few kids who are younger.
Yes.
And then one of the problems that happens when you always accept those younger kids is that when you come at the end of the year, okay, and you are deciding whether those kids should advance or should stay, then comes the question, parents believe that, well, the kids are kindergarten, pre-kindergarten should go to kindergarten this year. Then the principal and the teachers feel, well, that kid's still younger. He should actually stay again in the pre-K. And you get into this dispute and stuff like that. So this year, we opened an early pre-K. We actually started at 3 years old. So now we have early pre-K, we have pre-K, and then there is the pre-K, which is a 5 years old. So it actually happened the other way around.
Yeah,
But when we started kindergarten, first and second. That's how we started.
And we don't treat it as daycare.
Yeah, don't call it daycare, by the way.
Yeah.
For
Because if you daycare requirements is different than school requirements in terms of the state requirements for
Certification.
certification for how many kids are in the per adult and stuff like that. So
That's a good point. Thank you.
you can have a school, and within the school, actually going to early pre-K is common in many private schools. They have a pre-K, and then going to early they have early pre-K. The year which is of course all public schools have pre-K, but by the way, our pre-K and early pre-K, everything is full day. We don't have half days. All are full days. So pre-K is standard. Early pre-K, many private schools actually have that 4 years old thing.
Yes.
So you can have it as a preschool within a school. Then it is treated as a school. But if you actually call it a daycare, and it is only a daycare, like 3 years old only, then your license will become a daycare license. And it becomes a requirement. It will be treated by the state as a daycare, not as a school. Then the requirements will be more strict.
And different.
Yeah,
Okay.
different.
No, thank you. And then the other question I had, I and many other people are struggling with the idea of the location. Where we want to build the school. Almost all the schools that I have seen are part of the masjid or close to the masjid, which I support. I am for it. But our problem is we have 2 masjids in Grand Rapids. None of them have any land around it that you can build a school. So I want to ask your thoughts on it. Can you have a school, Islamic school, away from the masjid? And how much we would suffer lack of masjid? I mean, how do you balance that?
Well,
because part of the
actually,
training is have the kid go and do the salat and be part of, the practical life.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was one of the things we struggled with. Should the school be here, or should we have another area to build the school? And we debated that back and forth. At the end, we settled on having it here, and whether that was the right decision or not, only Allah knows. But that's what we decided. We decided to stay here for 2 reasons. One of them is that we had the land that we could expand in. Because what happened is that once we built the Islamic Center, over the years we started to buy things around us. We buy a church on this side, we buy a house here, house there. Yeah, we actually at one point we owned the 3 houses and the church. All those became part of our land. So we had the land to do it. Another reason we thought that it would be good to have it here is that when we build it here, the facility will support the Islamic Center itself. Well, the Islamic Center was built in the 70s. It was this area. Community was much smaller. It didn't have a gym, it didn't have classrooms, anything like that. That if we build here, that facilities will support the Islamic Center itself. And that's, of course, is good, and that's happening now. All the youth will come to the center, they go and play in the gym. The classrooms are used for Sunday school, used for Darul Quran, not just for the full-time school. That was the reason we did it here. The drawback is that building is much more expensive than buying. In other words, if you would find a building which is a school, and you may have to do some renovations, you may do that renovation for $1 million. This project, which is not complete yet, by the time it is complete, it probably will be 6-7. The estimate was $4 million back in the late 90s, okay? And of course, as phases are delayed, expenses are going up. And probably by the time we finish everything, including a basement and stuff like that, it will be $6-7 million, something like that. So it is very expensive to build, as opposed to actually buying and renovating. Now, in terms of the physical location and how that affects, if you actually have a building as a school, you always have a masjid inside. And that's one of the things that people told us also. Like, for example, there is the Canton School, which is called the Crescent Academy.
Yes.
Crescent Academy was established as a school. But of course, in the school, and that was a school that was built.
Yes.
It's not something they acquired. So they put a masjid. And now it became a community. In other words, the school became the masjid for a community. Okay? So always when you build, if you have a school, if you have a big hall, you can always convert that hall into a prayer hall.
That's right.
And that, having kids praying and doing this, you can create that in any building. It doesn't have to be the masjid that was already a masjid. You already create a masjid. And actually, in Canton, and we heard also some other places, that it becomes a masjid that prays 5 times a day, and people come to pray in the masjid. Of course, the doors will open only to the masjid, not to the whole building and stuff like that. But you create a masjid inside the school. So that's not a big issue. You can always create a masjid inside the school building, and always the kids can pray Zohr over there, and their imam, one of the teachers, or one of the older kids will be their imam and stuff like that. But for us, we debated that. We decided to go here. I hope that was the right decision, after all. But of course, we are still struggling because we started this building.
95?
No, the building itself was 2000. We got the permit from the city in 1999. We started the structure in 2000. We are still in process of doing one phase, and the basement is not yet there. So probably by the time this is done, we have to talk about 15 years. That's taking us in order to finish that building. So building is a challenge. If you can find the right place, and especially if the location, if you have two mosques, and the location can be maybe halfway, so you can appeal to this community, and appeal to this community.
That would be wonderful, but that's not the case.
That's not the case, yeah. But yeah,
We have 3 buildings, old school buildings, which city has put it on the on the market to sell.
yeah,
But none of those 3 are close to
Close,
where
yeah.
majority of our population lives.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Yes,
That's
Because
a
then-
drawback.
Yeah, that's a challenge. But let me tell you, at the end, the people who bring their kids here to the school, who have to drive, because we don't have a school bus.
Exactly.
We have about 170 today. In the committee, there's 176 now. 176. All those people have to drive their kids to school. And when they come in the morning to pick up their kids, or come in the afternoon to take their kids, you're not coming to the masjid. Okay? They come to the masjid on Friday to pray. Okay? Maybe few of them will wait until the kids are done. But the majority of people have to make a special trip. Okay? They have to make a special trip to drive in the morning to deliver their kids, and make a special trip in the afternoon to pick up their kids. The fact that the school is in the masjid probably is not affecting them.
I see.
Because they have to make this trip. They don't come to the masjid 8 o'clock in the morning. And they don't come to 4 p.m. Okay? And even when we schedule Asr prayer to match the end of the school day, so that parents maybe pray Asr, maybe at most 10 people are praying Asr.
That is pick up the kids.
And the rest are picking their kids and leaving. Okay? So they actually have to make the trip. And it is a trip they have to make. Some of them are driving 15 minutes to come here. And because one advantage of this location also, why we favor this, there were actually 2 advantages. One is that it was center in town. Lansing extends east side and west side. And this place was kind of center, near the highway. And another was, the closely to Michigan State made this place safe. This area is very safe.
Definitely, yeah.
So these were all factors that we got us to say, yeah, we'd like to build here because this area is safe. The proximity to the campus makes this area safe. So if even kids wander, kids playing out in the ground, playground here or there, we feel that this area is safe. There is another factor why we prefer this area. But in terms of people driving, I don't think the fact that we are at the mosque is really affecting them.
Okay. No, that's a good feedback.
Yeah, they
somehow-
don't go to the masjid in the morning at 8 o'clock in the
My
morning.
mind
Yeah.
was struggling to answer that question, but I want to hear somebody else.
Yes.
Is it just me thinking, or is other people thinking differently?
In fact, the schools that are closing and which are on sale will work to your advantage because they might be very economical to buy as compared
Yeah.
to building a new
That's
one.
true, and
What's the location?
we have, it may be a remote possibility, but we may be able to go to the city if we can show them our business plan.
Yeah.
Shows enough kids in the community, we may get it free, or may,
Let me tell you
Yeah.
something just because
I don't know, but it's-
we did look at some schools sometimes when we were struggling with the building. We did look at some schools. One of the things I learned about buying schools is the following rule. I learned that about 10 years ago, but maybe it's still the same rule. When there is a school building that's closed, and if you want to open it again as a school, if you open it within 12 months from closing, you don't have to meet the new school codes.
grandfather.
Yeah.
clause, yeah.
But if the school is closed over 12 months, then the building will have now to meet the new school code. Okay? That was the fire marshal requirements.
Yes.
So if the school is closed over the 12 months, before it opens again as a school, then you really, they added new requirements in terms of firewall requirements here and fire things there. water sprinklers, whatever new rules that was not at the time that the school was established, then you have to actually meet all these code requirements before they would, the fire marshal would certify it again as a school. But if it opens within 12 months,
No,
there's
they've been
not.
closed longer than.
So that will not be a factor then, because then you will have to really renovate and take care of that.
Well, not only that, I don't want to forget the fact that the older buildings are more costly.
Yeah, that's true.
In
Energy
case
wise.
of heating
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's
cooling
true.
and
Yeah.
maintenance.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, we may get it cheaper in the beginning,
Exactly.
but in the
The
long
long run,
run,
you lose.
Yeah,
we'll be
that's true.
spending all our income on maintaining the buildings. So,
That's true. Yeah.
So-
Of course, if you can build, but of course, can build means that you can put the finances, because building requires a big chunk of money.
exactly.
Yeah, that
But
then
another-
you have a choice of the location, because then you can look for the land. You have a choice of the location. You have a choice of the design of the building. If you'd like to have a masjid inside the building, you can actually design it in a way that would really look like a masjid
Yes,
inside. You have a lot of course, freedom to do.
exactly, because
Yeah.
you're doing it from ground up. The last question I have, at some point we'd like to invite you to come and talk to our committee and maybe to our community, inshallah.
Inshallah, we will see
Would that be
in the
possible?
trip.
Inshallah. In fact, I was going to offer that suggestion that you go and deliver a khutbah. He gives a khutbah every year dedicated to Islamic schooling.
Okay.
One such khutbah is even on our school website. You can take a look at it.
Okay.
And that will perhaps address a good segment of the community.
Yeah.
Thank you for the offer.
And his son also is now a professor at MSU, and he gives very good talks too.
But he doesn't talk about education. Education is my specialty. Huh?
Well, maybe we can have both.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Coming back to an earlier point about the building, given the opposition to Islamic centers and schools expansion, the atmosphere that's prevailing, keeping it as low profile as possible is good. Trying to do it in a place where there might not be natural opposition is good. For example, if you're going to do something right in the middle of some neighborhood, as opposed to doing it somewhere else where there might be lesser chance of an opposition.
Good point. Yeah, it's in my mind always.
Yeah.
By the way, we did have some very tough opposition. When we wanted to build a school, the neighborhood behind us objected on the ground that is a huge building and will change the traffic in the area, and they actually kept opposing it for several months. And at the end, the city council approved it on a vote of 3-2. But we did have, even though that we were in this area already, we are talking about 1998, we have been here since 1979, almost 20 years. We were in the community. We had good relations with our neighbors, we have no problems. But the moment we announced that we would like to build a school building, all kinds of oppositions came up. And we had to change the plan. We own a house behind us here, which is still standing. Our original plan, that house would have been demolished, and that actually would have been the playground of the school, which really now doesn't have a very good playground. They have a small playground here. And we were forced to keep that house because that house, there was a person who was well liked in the community, who was living in that house. He died. The guy had good relations with the Islamic Center. And the guy died, so his children sold the house to us. And they probably made a good profit because they knew that we wanted the house. They probably sold it better than the market value. So we had the house for 2-3 years. We wanted to demolish the house, make it part. Then all kinds of neighbors, the guy's name was Ras. Oh, this is Ras' house, as if Ras' house is a very good memory for them. How could you demolish Ras' house? Yeah. And we actually were forced to change the plan, to keep the house, so that we don't demolish the house, and we changed our plan, we kept the house. The house is still there.
Still there.
Okay? And so sometimes and that was one of the compromises that the mayor worked with us.
That's unseen.
The mayor wanted to approve, but he has this opposition, and he would come here and meet with people. And that was where the compromise was made. I mean, we had to give up something for the city council to have the courage to approve the project. And the compromise was keep the house. So we kept the house, when actually that would have been a very nice playground for the school. We couldn't do that because of the opposition. So we always keep this. And that was what? That was before 9/11. 9/11. That was back in 1999.
But to give a benefit of doubt to the neighbors, some of it is not necessarily against Islam or Muslims. It is natural opposition from neighbors.
Yeah.
Even if it was a church, they would have perhaps
For traffic or for whatever
opposed
reason.
it the same
Yeah,
way. Traffic and a building structure in the middle of a neighborhood.
No, those are all the points in question that I always struggling with. But
Zoning. Make sure that you are going to build that the area is already zoned the right way, so you don't have to go to a zoning board.
that's right.
Those zoning boards are terrible in approving anything.
What is happening in Flint?
Yeah,
They couldn't get their approval for
yeah.
expansion.
So if you buy a piece of land, make sure it's already rightly zoned for this kind of activity, so that you.
And make sure that the diversity is always there in the founding members' structures, so that
Oh, yes.
it doesn't look like an Arabic school or a Pakistani community school.
I always try that. we have members who are Bosnians, Pakistanis, Arabs, Afro-Americans, Somalians, white Americans. We have that.
Yeah.
In fact, try to have a dedicated subcommittee into the school for the school purposes, which is representing all these communities, because eventually you want to
Right
tap
now
into all of
there
them.
is no subcommittee,
Not yet,
and I don't know. I'm not in favor of too many committees.